said end live video?
Yeah, whatever you got.
Okay. So I'm going now.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I have a bigger picture of myself? Okay, thank you. Oh, great, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Namaste. I'm Dr. Arthur Brownstein from Hawaii, the United States. I want to thank Dr. Anand for having me be with you this morning. I'm a medical doctor. I've been a student of yoga as well, 40 years as a medical doctor and 40 years as a student of yoga. I've been fortunate to have come to India many times and for the purposes of studying yoga, which has saved my life. Today we are talking to the healthcare providers out there who are with us today, how to manage stress in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic that can be very anxiety-provoking and create a lot of fear in patients and families and in ourselves, feeling overwhelmed by everything that's shut down and everybody becoming ill and sick and this virus taking over and spreading. So how do we stay calm, cool, and collected and continue our duties in the midst of all this crisis that's going on in the world? So we're going to be doing some practices, very simple practices, but before we do that, I wanted to speak about what causes stress, the causes of stress, which is basically a mind phenomenon. So the mind is thinking. That's the nature of the mind. Where I studied at Kevaladam in Lonavala, Kevaladam Yoga Institute, they had a saying that the mind is like a drunken monkey that's been bitten by a scorpion. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it's been said that for the person who's conquered his mind, the mind is the greatest of friends. But for the person who is not, the mind is the greatest enemy. So how do we calm this mind down and use it as a servant? So there's the last thing I wanted to say is that the mind is a beautiful servant, but a terrible master. So we have to keep the mind in proper perspective, and the way that we do this through yoga is by keeping it calm and serene and relaxed and shanti. So Patanjali, who wrote the Yoga Sutras, his second sutra defines what yoga, the entire field, is really all about. Yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is calming the mind. That's a very simple translation, but it's also very appropriate. And the third Yoga Sutra, Tada Drastu Swarupe Vastanam, then the seer or the person is established in their own true fundamental nature. So when our mind is calm, we can be our authentic selves. What does that mean? That means we can start listening to the wisdom that comes from our hearts. Our hearts are incredible organs that not only have a physical basis, but a spiritual basis as well. One of the doctors that I've been fortunate to work with over the years is Dr. Dean Ornish. You might have heard of him. He's the first person in the world to prove you can reverse heart disease without drugs or surgery using a yogic model and a yogic foundation for his program. So he had this beautiful saying that the physical heart is a metaphor for the spiritual heart. So the heart is much more than just an organ that pumps 8 to 12 tons of blood for us every day through 100,000 miles of arteries and veins and capillary beds, and that beats over 100,000 times a day, and that can last roughly 100 years, give or take 20 years, and which can be transplanted to another human being and go on for another 40 years in another person's body. So yes, it's an incredibly amazing physical structure, but there's a deeper dimension to the heart that yoga helps us access, and that is the spiritual center. And our minds are great, great servants. They can calculate, they can measure, they can plan, they can deduct, they can reason, they can do so many incredible things. But our minds that are not anchored in our hearts are like a ship out at sea that has lost its anchor, and it will go drifting here and there and be at the mercy of all the storms and tempests of the seas, and will get either buried or wrecked on some coastline where there's a reef. And so we need to be anchored in our hearts, and our hearts have to lead us. And that is the journey that we're all on. That is the journey of yoga. And one very wise saint once, his name was Dada, a very simple man, he said that we're all on pilgrimages back to ourself. That's what the yogic journey is, back to our hearts, where love lives and where peace resides. So when we're busy taking care of patients in a very busy hospital with very limited resources, and we feel like the world is caving in on us and we cannot possibly take care of everybody, and we have families and loved ones at home that are missing us, and we're working long hours and with lack of sleep and lack of food, it's very, and we're making very difficult mental decisions with our minds, and we need our minds to be very clear, even on very little minimal sleep and lack of food and very difficult circumstances. How do we manage that kind of stress in this very, very difficult, challenging arena that we're in? Well, here comes yoga, which is India's wonderful gift to the world, which I happened to discover 40 years ago after an injury. And that's how I came to yoga. And I learned that it has been so much more than just a physical system of healing or asanas and poses. And it is just a very, very deep spiritual path that also is a healing path. So today we're going to do some very simple breathing and meditation that you can conduct in the middle of your duties in the hospital. You can take a break in a room, or just find some quiet time, or even if you're at the bedside of your patient, you can find these quiet moments to pay attention to your breath. So I'd like you just for a moment, hopefully you're not driving your car or driving while you're watching this, but to find a place where you can be quiet for a few moments and just close your eyes and try to let the breath flow in and out of your nostrils, out of your nose, if you're able to. If your nose is congested or you have a problem breathing through your nose, you can very gently breathe out of your mouth by pursing your lips. But in yoga, we say that the mouth is for eating and speaking, and the nose is for smelling and breathing. So if possible, if you can just let the breath flow in and out, and just pay attention to that movement of your breath as it flows in and flows out. And just keep your mind there, even though the mind loves to wander. That's its job, is to go here and there. Just let it focus on your breathing, this wonderful life-giving breath that we have that allows us to live. And the breath serves as a wonderful connection between our minds and our bodies, and in particularly between our nervous system and our hearts, so that when our breath is calm and relaxed, that slows down our brain, and working through the autonomic nervous system allows for a more parasympathetic predominance of the autonomic nervous system. And that has a calming effect on the heart, which slows down the heart, slows down the blood pressure, and has a calming effect on the nervous system. So that one of the nicknames of that is given, one of the terminologies for pranayama is Swami Kuvalananda gave this, who founded the Kevaladam Yoga Institute in 1924, that pranayam is nerve culture, that you slow down your nervous system and calm your nervous system, and which has a tremendous influence on your heart and allows our consciousness to come out of our heads, out of our stress, out of our fear-based anxiety patterns, and to come back to the rhythmical, gentle, soothing nature of our heart. So if you're still with me, I'd like you to just gently place your hands over your heart and continue to breathe nice and slowly and deeply without any forcing or straining. And see that as your breathing is slowing and becoming more relaxed and more smooth and more gentle, that your heart rate is also slowing down, becoming more relaxed, more gentle, breathing in and out, allowing the breath to flow in and out of your body. Without holding the breath, whether while breathing in or breathing out. Just let it flow smoothly. Let your shoulders relax. Let your body relax. Let your mind relax. Breathing in and breathing out. And see if you can tune in to the inner voices inside your body as your brain quiets down. Yoga is an inner journey back to our true selves. It's a journey that we take in quietness. It allows our minds to become still. And then we can feel who we really are in our hearts. And the deeper we go, the more we realize that we are able to tap into a deep, deep love that gives us tremendous compassion to serve others. So many great people who've come before us, so many great swamis and gurus who've taken up the service of humanity have always allowed time for themselves to find some quietude before they started their day, and if they have time in the middle of their day, and certainly at the end of their day, to just use the breath to help calm your mind, to go inside, to feel your wonderful, loving heart, which contains a portal into the oneness of all humanity. Is through the heart. It is where our compassion for helping others comes from. And this is where the universal energy of love, which is the greatest healing power in the world, resides. So I want you to please know that this resource, this inner resource for healing and restoration, is available to you whenever you take a few moments out of your very, very busy, demanding days and recharge your batteries, reconnect with your heart, allow your mind to unwind and settle down and be the wonderful servant that it is, but not be the master that it is prone to be when it gets too busy and too crazy and out of control. And it needs to come back to listen to the gentle incantations of our heart, where the wisdom of who we really are and truth and the universal energy of love, which is the greatest healing power in the world, resides permanently within us, and which is the source of all our spiritual energy and wisdom. That wisdom coming from our heart. I believe there's an ancient Sanskrit word called antakaran that describes the seat of wisdom that resides in our heart, that could guide us through our most difficult decisions that we make in serving our patients and caring for our families and loved ones. And I'll just very simply close with a beautiful saying that I found many years ago by Swami Sri Yukteswar, who was the teacher of Swami Paramahansa Yogananda, who came to the West and founded some very beautiful institutes of self-realization fellowship in California, where I grew up as a child. And Swami Sri Yukteswar said this. He said, "The land of healing lies within, radiant with happiness, that is blindly sought in 1,000 outer directions." I'll repeat that one more time. The land of healing lies within, radiant with happiness, that is blindly sought in 1,000 outer directions. And once you're in that beautiful, peaceful, loving space, you can hold your patient's hands. You can hold the hands of those who are. And if you're not allowed to hold them physically, you can hold a space for their hearts in your heart and provide a very calm and reassuring environment for all your patients and their families and all your loved ones. And I wish you Godspeed in your carrying out your duties. I'll just leave you with two final quotations that have inspired me. The first one is this: "I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted and beheld. Service was joy." And that was by Rabindranath Tagore, a very famous Nobel laureate from Bengal. And the second quotation I'll leave you with is, "The hands that serve are holier than the lips that worship." And that was by Sadhu Vaswani, who established many clinics for the poor in service to humanity. And so I salute you, healthcare workers of Chandigarh, and for Dr. Anand and all your colleagues and associates for taking on this tremendous task of alleviating suffering in the people who are coming to you. And it is my heartfelt wish that you will do so with a center of calm and strength and the greatest energy in the world, which is the love that comes from your own hearts. So thank you so much. God bless, and namaste.